It is critical for quality and validation professionals to stay on the pulse of emerging policies and regulations. From the FDA's computer software assurance draft to the newly released EU medical device general safety and performance guidance, evolving regulations are a constant. Our network of professionals cover these topics and more in print, in person, and online, bringing the latest industry news and tools to our audience of hardworking experts just like you. The IVT network gives you the tools you need to succeed in your profession, providing innovative content, industry research, lifelong learning, and opportunities for networking on a global level. For our listeners, receive 15 months for the price of 12 plus an exclusive discount with your new subscription. Subscribe today with IVT Network, the best decision you'll make all year for your life sciences career.
This is Voices in Validation, brought to you by IVT Network. IVT Network is your expert source for life science regulatory knowledge. Voices in Validation brings you the best in validation and compliance topics. We interview industry experts from pharma, biotech, med devices, and laboratories. Here is the host of Voices in Validation, Stacey.
Thank you, and welcome to another episode of Voices in Validation, brought to you by the IVT Network. We have just witnessed the remarkable impacts and successes which can be achieved in life sciences as industry raced to find a vaccine. Considering breakthrough discoveries and life-changing innovations, life science professionals are imperative to the health of our communities, belonging to a sector that's a key economic driver of the global economy. Unfortunately, the ability to hire professionals across multiple functional areas within life sciences has become a competitive imperative. Multiple factors are intensifying the scarcity of talent. Today, we're going to talk about the challenges of attracting and hiring top talent, tactics for building and retaining a workforce, and the technologies that are changing the ways we recruit, hire, and train our teams. And lending her expertise for this conversation is Robin Toft. Welcome, Robin. Such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. I love this topic, Stacey. I'm so pleased that you chose it for today.
I am too. It's one I've been thinking about for a long time, and this is the first time we're broaching it on Voices in Validation. So it's really great to finally get there. Robin, to start us off today, can you provide us with a picture of the current talent landscape for life science companies? You know, what is the current hiring environment like?
I am the head of global life sciences for ZRG Partners, the fastest growing boutique search firm. And with that lens, that landscape view, I can tell you we are in a severe talent crisis for the next, I would estimate, 5 to 10 years. It's really significant. And a lot of people say why. And there are essentially 4 great reasons. The first one is unprecedented investment in our industry. It is the healthiest industry that I can ever imagine coming out of a pandemic, no less. We have put unprecedented venture and private equity cash into these companies. And, I think there were 500 IPOs last year as compared to 250 in the prior 2 years, which were already healthy years. So what's unfortunate, however, is that all of these investors are not thinking about the talent. They're just like, all companies are raising 100 to 150 million on their Series B round, which used to be a 20 to 30 million dollar round. And the first thing people do when they have a lot of cash is try to scale up. So, think about the fact that during COVID, a lot of baby boomers decided to retire. They just said, I don't want to lead in the new economy. I can go live in my second home and really enjoy my life. And so the generation behind us is smaller. So that's the second compromising effect. And the last one is that the people that we really need are not ready for the roles. So sure. It's a really significant conversation.
Wow. I mean, and yeah, it's seriously because there's so many boomers who are going to be retiring in the next decade that this problem, as you mentioned, is only going to get worse before it gets better, I would guess. So given the shared talent pool and then retirement of baby boomers and the need to diversify, teams across the board, how important is having a talent management strategy to the overall success? here?
So I want to characterize this by saying I was first a 25-year industry professional before I started building and leading a search firm, which indeed was sold to ZRG. I would tell you that talent management is the single most important thing right now. I actually want to see CHROs in the boardroom right now. The people crisis is that significant and severe. And I just read an HBR article that actually suggested that the number one reason that people leave companies is they don't have career advancement. I absolutely enforce that that is true. That is exactly the reason why everybody is open to entertaining new opportunities, is that they don't feel they have career progression. And so figuring out what is the career path for every single executive you have, and what is the succession planning that you have for the top of the organization, it couldn't be more important at this moment in time. And that's where I'm asking companies to really spend their mind share to the boardroom level. And I've actually heard that venture capitalists are actually talking a lot about this before investing, is what is your talent management strategy? How are you going to develop the team? The number one way to staff our companies of the future is to escalate the people at the bottom of the organization as fast as we possibly can, because they're coming out of university in record numbers. Right. But so VPs and directors are younger than they ever have been. And we have to all get okay with that and give them the right support infrastructure to develop their careers inside your company.
Makes total sense. And I would think that it costs far less for an organization to train their teams and advance them within than to constantly have to go back and try to find, hires from outside the organization. So, Robin, talent scarcity, it's not new. It may be worse now than ever, but it's definitely not new. It's always been a challenge in life science. But as you're talking about, that gap seems to really be widening. How can a company stand out, to potential employees when trying to attract the right people to their organization?
So we all know that cultural fit is, well, maybe we don't. I know this because I lead a search firm, but I would characterize cultural fit as 75% of the hire, maybe 95% in certain companies, and 25% is the technical checklist. So I would say really loosening the reins on the technical checklist of perfection is point one when you're actually looking to attract and retain people. Just speaking about the number one driver of attraction right now is the flexibility of where you work and live. Mm-hmm. And I know that seems like it's only related to COVID. It's not at all. I had been preaching that for 2 years before COVID hit, and nobody wanted to hear anything about it. CEOs were completely adverse, and this is what I mean about the baby boomer generation not being able to manage the remote thing very well. Right. We're not used to it. I will speak because I am one. We want people to be in front of us. We know there are a lot of benefits to building a team on site, but particularly in areas of regulatory, quality, medical, scientific, which are under extreme duress right now, these roles, you need to let people live where they live. And that's, incredibly compromised if you have to run an R&D group or show up in the lab. How are we going to handle this? So to make a standout company, I think the paradigm has to be, we trust you, we believe in you, and we empower you. I saw an interesting survey in the San Diego paper last weekend that actually surveyed employees to suggest how efficient and accountable they were being, and then the company's comparative, what the companies felt about their employee base. And employees all believed that they were over contributing and working harder than ever, and they were completely accountable, and the companies believed otherwise. So I think this, I trust you, I empower you, I let you live where you live. I have always maintained, and I've preached this, you probably read it in my book, We Can, yes, that if you're hiring the right people, you have to worry about them working too much, not enough. So we have to learn how to hire for accountability, for personal growth, for people who are really committed to your mission, vision, and values. Succession planning for all, we spoke about. Make a public commitment to inclusive leadership and the fact that you actually believe in diversity. I saw another stat that in the state of California, that millennials are already are only 33% white. That's a fascinating stat.
Absolutely.
The commitment to diversity couldn't be stronger. I know we're going to speak a lot about that today, but development programs for underserved groups, mentors, and coaching for groups that need coaching specifically, maybe not groups, but individuals, and competitive compensation I would put last, but still important. Compensation is escalating right now because every candidate, and I don't want to scare everybody on this meeting, but I want to get a reality check about what is. Every candidate at the executive level is like San Francisco real estate. Everybody wants them. There are 5 jobs for every person. So when you ask, how do you create a standout company? All of these things play in, but I would put compensation last, because if you're really knocking it out of the park on all the other levers, people will stay. I've seen absolute examples of this even on boards where I serve, where someone swoops in from a tech company and tries to pay someone exorbitantly more, but they stay because they're helping patients, the mission, the vision, the values, the culture, the people they work with, and the career progression, the opportunity they have.
And we hear it constantly, even in the news, they're talking about millennials, how there's really been this shift in thinking, and that they really want to feel good about their job and not just enjoy the work they do, but feel good about the company that they're working for and know that, they're, as an organization, they're doing good out there somehow. So everything you're saying makes complete sense to me. How important, and you're talking a lot about things that make up the culture within an organization. So how important is, the company's culture, including the diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts and their core values in attracting and retaining talent, versus traditional perks and benefits of decades past, which may include compensation, but things like, vacation time and company car and a cell phone and all of that. Like, how does that weigh out today?
I would say that all of those things, like the free lunch and all that, out the window. I was actually never a huge fan of all of that. I think what people resonate with is that we are a trusting team of partners that are actually getting something very important done in the world. And I can't emphasize enough how much that differentiates us from tech.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to point out that we're competing with tech in the exact same markets, be it Boston, San Francisco. This unprecedented investment was also happening on the tech side. And in contrast and in comparison, we are much more centered around the patient and changing lives and changing the way healthcare is delivered in our lifetimes. And so for that purpose, mission, vision, that has to be incredibly strong. And you really can differentiate your company with respect to that. Also, this DEI conversation needs to come, and it's not a metrics thing. And I want to really emphasize this. This is a competitive advantage because it enhances innovation, financial performance, and the ability to attract and retain people. So it should be a conversation from the top down. The CEO says, like at J&J, when given a choice, we choose diversity. It's on every wall at J&J. When given a choice, we choose diversity because it's better for our company, not because we're trying to check boxes.
Yeah,
so,
no, for sure.
Yeah, having the belief at the highest levels that inclusive leadership is important. And that takes a lot of education, because I think, most everyone in life sciences would think we are inclusive, but we don't even realize that we were born with a lot of advantages and that the playing field may not be even. And we actually have to take steps and we have to take actions to change things. So it's actually a welcoming, amazing culture so that everyone can equally contribute and be heard and have great conversations. So, it is the funniest thing because it's harder to manage a diverse team of people. Any of you who manage people realize that. But yet being inclusive and thoughtful and realizing everybody is encouraged differently and needs to be brought along at different rates and with different tools and resources, that's a great leader. So that style of leadership in the culture is also paramount. And whatever you've done about that, making that evident to the outside world and making it consistent that when you interview, everybody speaks about that. It's really because it's who you are. Culture.
Yes. Right. And to your point, it is so important to the success of the organization or the company, because if you have a homogenous group of people sitting around a table trying to innovate, you're all going to have the same ideas. You can't, you're never going to get out of your own way, basically. So, I mean, from a strategic standpoint, it makes sense to have a diverse group of folks. And I hope that we start to see, even in the top roles, that diversity, because I see it in teams, but I don't see it as much,
Right.
at the very
So
top.
let's go again. Everybody's proud in the Bay Area. And I speak a lot of the Bay Area because I spent so much time there, and we have a big office there, but that they're 52% at bottom diverse.
Yeah.
But we're 20% at C-level and board level, and we're 5% at the top. That is so not okay. And I'm never going to rest until it's 52% all the way up, at least gender diversity, because gender is diverse, and people say, why women? I say, because we are diverse as a group. And if we can escalate people from below that actually can diversify an organization, it's in everybody's best interest. And I want to say something kind of thought-provoking, perhaps. So my business partner, who founded WeCanRiseCommunity.com with me, is a middle-aged, gray-haired white male, and he is really having a lot of awarenesses around how he's being received in the world. And for the first time, feeling the energy about being discriminated against as a middle-aged, gray-haired white male. And so I think this sensitivity for everyone is important right now. That's how a lot of people have felt throughout their careers. And now my vision and my dream for our industry is that we realize it's healthier, and that we lift each other up, and that we can help each other accelerate each other's careers. And it's just the right thing to do and to be. And again, a lot of life science companies believe this. I would suggest to you is, if you have 5 potential employers, definitely select the one that is favorable to that mind shift.
Great tip. That's a great tip. So I want to talk a little bit about digitization, the digital transformation that we've been hearing about within industry for the last few years. Does the internal digital transformation progress impact the hiring and retention efforts in any way?
Yeah, so I would say this whole telemedicine revolution that actually just ignited as well with COVID is here to stay, and it's fantastic. And a lot of the skill sets that we need to be really successful life science companies are not necessarily already resident in our industry. We need to draw from tech to get a lot of that intel, and we need to go to younger, and again, more diverse. So there's age diversity, gender diversity, and ethnic diversity. So we're going to go to younger generations for this ability to digitize and consumerize patient data. I mean, this is like running rampant through our industry, this consumerization and this necessity to, even from a marketing standpoint, from a product development standpoint, to incorporate this. So I would say that this is pushing us more towards recruiting from tech. I'm being asked all the time to source from those companies. Also, the consumerization, the consumer industry, we actually get asked to go way outside of life sciences and find people from consumer. And I think that age discrimination is gone, because we need 2 things in our industries. We need the seasoning at the top. So, to no offense of the gray-haired middle-aged white guys who have run our companies for years, we need seasoning. And there should not be a reason why seasoned people should not be working and advancing and bringing people along. But we also need new thinking and new skills and talents for this digitization of big data and all of the information that we have to manage.
Yeah, the AI and right. Virtual reality, all of it. Yeah.
I will tell you definitively, the baby boomer population does not have this. They didn't grow up with it, and it's not their strength. So, the perfect rationalization for incorporating all voices around the table.
Absolutely. And I'm just thinking about, your last comment about going out and trying to recruit out of tech and consumer markets. And reminds me of a report I was just reading from Deloitte that that stated, compared to other sectors, the life science sector is noteworthy for relatively high levels of dissatisfaction among surveyed employees, particularly among the longer term or more seasoned employees. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Would you agree that that's the case? And if so, what do you think the contributing factors to that discontent are?
You know, Stacey, I had to think long and hard about this question and really reflect on it. And I haven't necessarily seen that, but you have to remember I work nearly exclusively, I run global life sciences for ZRG Partners. So I'm nearly exclusively in life sciences and healthcare high tech, the edge of this.
Right.
But as mentioned, you know, bridging out to get these other sectors. What I would tell you is, I don't know what the questions were in the survey, but I would say the dissatisfaction is largely around exhaustion right now. And that our employee base, you know, when COVID started, we just amped up. We never slowed down. And the rest of the world may have taken a little sabbatical. And I could say definitively that all other sectors that we work with in search just died.
Right.
Our industry amped up because we were responsible for the response and for creating all the vaccine companies, the diagnostic companies, the digital delivery companies, the telemedicine, you know, just everything is on, and no one had a moment of relaxation. So again, I can't emphasize enough that flexibility and even flexibility of hours and understanding that people need respite from what they just had this year. That was the busiest year. Every single person I speak with they're drinking from the fire hose. It's been the busiest year they've ever had in their life, and they can't get enough good people to do the jobs around them. So, you know, so that's happening. I would say retention is a big, giant problem right now. Mm-hmm. And I know I always speak about things from talent, but the reason I do talent is you can't run our companies or make our products if we don't have talent. And my whole intention of starting a search firm was change the way healthcare is delivered in my lifetime, specifically cancer treatments. So retention, you know, we have to find a way to make our workforce feel emotionally stable and happy. So again, the CHRO in the boardroom, we have to create a sense of belonging amongst people, even though they're remote. And we have to be empathetic to so this whole empathetic leadership and vulnerability and talents, that the soft skills that for years and years were underrated, I think they're really necessary in life science companies right now. So are people dissatisfied? Absolutely. I will tell you that everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but 90% of people changed jobs last year.
Wow.
It was crazy. I think they may have been sitting at home interviewing all day long and saying, is this really what I want to do with my life? Yeah. So one of our largest challenges in executive search right now is that everybody just changed jobs. So you're immediately suspect as a candidate if you changed jobs already, and now you're willing to change again. And people are doing that for the first time ever. You know, we've always had like a 95 to 98%, you know, acceptance of offer rate as an executive search firm. We never extend an offer unless we know it'll be accepted. Right. Now, I would suggest to you it might be 60 or 70%. It's really, and people will accept an offer and then decline it before they start. So this engagement to companies with emotional exhaustion and the fact that maybe there's something better on the horizon and I just need to be you know, people are very unsettled. So let's just leave it at that. So if they're surveying people during COVID year, I think there's a lot of that shining through. Yeah, that's a dramatic difference. And, you know, perhaps we will see that for the next several months as we sort of start to return to normal. And I guess it puts things, when you go through a global pandemic like we just did, you know, it puts a different spin on it, right? Everybody's perspectives change a little bit because you're thinking more about like, all right, I've been working my tail off here, and do I want to continue to do this, or do I need a little bit more work-life balance here? And I think that everybody's just had some time to think about that, and perhaps this is, you know, one of the impacts of that pandemic. Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty significant, and I would say, you know, really, if I had one advice to employees in this circumstances, I would say schedule quarterly meetings and weekly conversations with the person you work for, and quarterly meetings, and have a plan for your career development for the year that you hope to accomplish, and take them as a partner and sit down with them on a quarterly basis and really share with them. So communication is the number one thing. Your next perfect job could be in this company, and you have to give them a chance. And I always say, don't resign your position. Don't even look for an outside job. Don't even interview until you've given them a chance to solve. Seriously, we all need to be talking to each other right now. The person you work for is probably under the same duress that you are.
Right.
It's just tough times. And I want to applaud every single person on this meeting for listening along, trying to learn, and realizing that, well, you're clearly growth-minded just for being here, right? That we can make this better. And we have all had a tough year. I would really also suggest going on vacation right now. So we should all take vacations.
Nice long vacation. So thinking about hiring, is geography a factor? I'm just thinking about what training programs and universities are out there that are successfully launching life science new hires. And I'm wondering if you're seeing, certain regions of the country having a more challenging time than others with this hiring process.
Yeah, so it's funny now. So most hiring officials in most companies will say, well, we've learned that people can be remote. So maybe we should be a lot more flexible about this. So they are, and they're even doing it to the extent that, well, wherever we hire this next VP, they can build their group there. So we're open-minded, but typically they will tell me the hubs of life sciences. So either San Diego or San Francisco or Boston is usually what the refrain is. Mm-hmm. Lesser hubs are gaining in huge popularity. Austin, RTP, and New York are amongst them. So I would also say that the schools are a huge driver as to where the hubs are. And if you look at the California Life Science Association data, it's now called CLS, they have some great data, but it's, I think, out of the top 10 universities for producing life science talent, a really significant number in California, might be either 6 or 8 of them, right? So, but Stanford, Harvard, Chicago Booth School of Business, Berkeley, all these schools are turning out great numbers in equal measure, male and female, of PhDs and MDs, and they're coming into our industry. Hopefully they've selected science and math way back when. But our the biggest problem that companies have is attracting new grads. And so, one real powerful way of doing that is to set up an internship program. My last executive role was a senior vice president at Roche, and we had a really nice affiliation with UC Berkeley. And all the Berkeley grads from their MBA program would come over and seed into Roche, and we would end up hiring all of them. So, I think that those kinds of programs are really important, and also doing those similar programs with universities that are racially diverse, because we really need to increase the racial diversification of life sciences as a whole.
Right. Yeah, globally.
Globally.
So what do you think the most important factors, that hiring managers need to consider in recruitment, and not just recruitment, because, we've talked a lot about being attractive to prospective employees, but really retention of their top talent?
Well, I'm gonna talk about process of recruitment because this is critically important. So, what I'm seeing a lot is the CEO and the head of HR may be completely aware of the talent crisis that is, and they are trying to change their ways and be, faster and more responsive. But the team below them, the executive team, the VPs, the people who are hiring the talent, are behaving exactly like yesteryear. They're acting like, we have forever to hire. It's called organizational arrogance. And there's a number of companies that actually are very affected by it. And I can speak with some of my former employers but some companies we work with are continuing to be this, even in this sort of era, which that means we believe we're going to interview as long as we want, and we're going to hold out for perfect, and we're not going to ever lower our bar or change our perspective on what this role should be or what the level of the person should be. And when you approach a search in that way, you'll never be successful, because there is no perfect candidate. We're going to have to make accommodations for everybody, and we're going to have to hire people that are less senior than we wanted. So, and we have to get through the process quickly. I can't emphasize that enough. when the candidates is a candidate-driven market, they are going to take other jobs if we can't get them through our process. So again, organizational arrogance is spacing out, 7 or 8, interview processes that are like going on for months and months. That doesn't work in today's market. So I think, we were all spoiled by, when it was a corporately driven market and we had nothing but time, that was okay. But now the candidates are pacing you. So, you need to get the candidates to be very clear on what else they're looking at and how much time we have. And if you have a search firm inserted, they can slow them down. But, it's, we all need to behave differently. And the last thing I would say about that is attract the people while you're interviewing them. So again, hiring manager mindset is sometimes I'm going to just analyze them and do my checklist. I'm going to just go down the checklist and tell them why they're not qualified and all that stuff. And I'm going to find all the gaps and I'm going to report that back to senior management and say they have all these gaps, as compared to trying to really talk them into coming to your company while you're interviewing them. And that's a real skill that a lot of great companies have. You should want everyone that comes through your interview process to leave wanting your job, whether you want them or not. But you also have to be able to somehow vet, are they good enough for us, right? But you want to leave them with this incredible impression stamp. And I would say the last thing is your website impression really, really matters. And again, lens of diversification. If you have some diversity leaders that you can emphasize on this site, people are going to look at you before they even apply to say, is this someone that actually has strong messaging around things I care about, not only the mission, vision, values, but that you will advance my career. You will help me grow into the future professional that I want to be, and that they believe in diversity as a core value. And I think, that would be the second driver. The first driver is, can I live where I live? Oh, wait, there are 3. Can I live where I live? Will you develop me? And do you believe in diversity of thought around the table? Because I'm different from everybody else. Think about that. 33% white. That's quite a stat in California, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, we need to really start to shift our thinking in a lot of organizations. But I don't want to say, because there are some companies out there who are doing an amazing job with this, and kudos to them. But as an industry, I know that we can get better. And I want to spend a little bit more time talking about inclusion, because you've mentioned it several times so far. And as an industry, how can we really begin to leverage diversity as our competitive advantage? I mean, I know you said they need to start seeing is it a competitive advantage, but what do they need to do? How do we encourage folks in our industry to start to make this shift?
Yeah, that is the question of the moment, Stacey. And I'm so glad you asked. I was actually having a very active LinkedIn conversation last night about this. And I think we have to welcome white men to the table. They actually are leading our companies and they're trying to understand and get involved. And we can't, we have to understand there's a learning curve to what inclusion is. Mm-hmm. So inclusion is a different way of being and a different way of leading. And just like I said, a lot of leaders aren't comfortable leading in the remote world. They're also not comfortable being inclusive. They may have been like command and control style leaders or, some other thing that they learned along the way. And inclusion is, again, soft skills. And right. So if different people have to evolve into these roles with empathy, compassion, team, understanding, and then they will. And so I think really taking a hard look at your own organization, and I can only speak for the CEOs that I work with, the more diverse the CEO is, typically the more diverse their company becomes because they understand and they have sensitivities to the things. I just read a really good book. I'm going to forget the author's name, but it's about inclusive leadership. I think her name was Karen Brown. Remarkable book. And similarly, White Fragility is a great book if you haven't read it. It's really important to understand that we're all on a learning journey around what does real inclusion mean. We had a lot of success in the industrial age building companies of extreme value, and we want to applaud what has gone on so far. It's like fantastic. But in order to continue our journey, We have to welcome all talented people to the table and realize that they've had different life experiences. The playing field's not even for them. That is the concept of equity versus equality. So a lot of people that have been in our industry a long time think about equality. Well, everyone has the same opportunity to succeed, but equity means the playing field's not even for people with different backgrounds. So how do we flatten the playing field so we can all like race at the same speed? And what kind of resources do we need to apply? So I really want us to get away from this checkbox mentality about, we need a DEI program, so we'll hire a person of color to run the DEI program. And no, we need to change the culture of the whole company right now. We need to care, we need to learn about things that we have not concerned ourselves with before, because at that, in that period of time, it wasn't important. I mean, I really believe that working cohesively and collaboratively, we will build healthier, more innovative, more successful companies for the future, and we will not run roughshod over the environment, and we will be considerate of things that we need to think about as an industry. So, back to the how do you leverage diversity as a competitive advantage? I would say you would show you really care. You would get involved with causes, and you would have your teams and your people involved, and you would financially support areas that you believe are critically important. I have Wecanthropy, and it's always been a lead in how I lead, is I invest in causes that are really, really important to me. And my two causes are empowerment of women and changing the way cancer is treated in my lifetime. And everybody that works with me is all involved. So just as an example, we all walk the 3-day for breast cancer every year for 10 years, right? I mean, you have to really show up on the causes. You can't just act like you care. You have to actually get the company behind these things. I'm on CEOs Against Cancer with the American Cancer Association. So, these are kind of examples that everybody, So these are examples that everybody can learn from. I would also sponsor, interns that are diverse into your company. And I would hire out of adjacent industries that for which you can get people of color to join your organization. So for instance, HR and finance completely cross all industries. So that's a good place to start. It's a hard place to start in science and tech because, sometimes people haven't chosen that and they're, we're looking for, so consider healthcare, consider consumer, consider going straight to high tech, but bring them in for your mission and vision. And, if you're that obvious about, the where you spend your time, your energy, your executive thought around how important this is, you will win the talent war. You will continue with the great work. And if people here are feeling like your company is not understanding all of this, have your CEO listen to this podcast. It's important that we all get it, so that we can keep building strong companies.
And in follow up to that, Robin, it just occurred to me, well, I just finished reading your book, We Can, as I mentioned to you before we hopped on this call. And one thing that stood out to me was that you pointed out that different leaders were needed within your organization at different phases, right? And so do you feel like, we're entering this phase where it's going to take a specific kind of leader to really pave the way for their organization to make this mental shift, this culture shift?
I completely believe that. So in any organization, there are multiple CEOs over time, right? Multiple leaders over time in every department. And it has to do with the stage of the company. So, in the startup stage, you often have the scientific founder, and then you get the person who understands business and strategy and can finance the company. And then you get the commercial stage CEO. But similarly, this CEO who is very empowering to people, this is the era for that. Yeah. And I cannot tell you, I run a board and CEO desk that's very, very busy. And I am on the front lines of diversification of boards, which is the CEOs work for the board, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I cannot tell you how enthusiastic everyone is about diversifying the boards. It's not just public company boards in California. It's all people are racing to diversify their boards, which will change the whole spirit of this company. So it doesn't have to be just the CEO. take a look at the board of the company for which you work and understand how it is comprised. What's happening as we head into commercialization stage is functional roles around the table so that everybody can help. And that doesn't mean every woman or person of color on the board has been a CEO or a CFO in the past. They can have a blend of talents, but they're bringing something very specific. So to our point, this digitization, big data orientation, you can get that from a board member that is diverse. And it will be, I just have such a great vision for the future with the leaders do need to change, to your point.
Yeah, and I think that's great to hear that, you know, we are seeing companies embrace the diversification of their boards, because it's definitely gonna have to be a top-down effort. Thinking about veterans of industry, we talked a little bit about seasoned employees. What is important for their competitive advantage, you know, over new grads or more technologically savvy colleagues? And what do they need to do to stay relevant in the industry or to continue to advance in their career?
Yeah, so CEOs are younger and younger and younger.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how inexperienced some of the CEOs we get to work with are, but they're, you know, they're growth minded and they're trying to learn as fast as they can. So your best role is probably mentor to who may be your CEO boss or others at that level that are young, you know, aspirational, moving quickly through life, and they've come up with a great company and they've been hiring senior executive talent as your right-hand person, whether it be the COO or the, you know, the more executive level, the CFO. So sometimes you have the really young founders, and then you have like a really hardcore experienced CFO that can take them public and do, you know, many great things with them. So I would say secondarily, a seasoned person, let's say they're a baby boomer that chose to step away from their full-time gig. Really great consultants, like regulatory strategy, FDA negotiation, you know, combined set, finance, doing the IPO prep, HR, you know, really working with the organization and making sure they can set up their talent infrastructure properly. So, and chief medical officers, even in a consulting capacity, are really in vogue. So we have a whole interim practice over at ZRG that is booming, because you can bring in, for instance, someone with CFO talent to do the IPO prep. So the very senior people are great for that. And I would say also board members. So, you know, again, if you get great seasoning around the table as a board professional, so pursuing your board career is great. I'm just launching a board IQ program, which is through the roof, busy, because, you know, that's where a lot of us can use our time and talents to continue to make a difference in the industries that we believe in and want to serve.
Excellent. So it does sound like, you know, consultants then really do provide a lot of benefit to an organization, not just.
Oh, particularly regulatory consultants. I mean, I think we all know that people that are, you know, really accomplished in the industry, that have very good interface with the FDA, they can name their price, and they tend to stay as consultants and have a variety of clients. So anybody that can spread their talents over a variety of clients right now is really, or companies, is really, really important. So, you know, don't feel like your career is over. Your career of giving guidance and advice is just starting.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. I've dealt with a lot of consultants in this, you know, in what I do daily, and they seem to be some of the most well-rounded, really understanding the industry from like the 20,000 foot view, not just the piece that you know, they may be specialized in when they were in industry, but now they've grown beyond that, and they really understand the inner workings of life science companies. And I think that's so valuable, so valuable. Well, Robin, this has been an amazing conversation. You know, I look forward to having another one of these in the near future, or maybe it's a little bit further off in the distance, where we can really start to see the positive impacts from the diversification of boards and C-suite, and upper management. But as we wrap up today, I just want to see if you have any last thoughts or ideas that you'd like to share with our listeners.
So my main thought is just develop and inspire your employees. Just lift them up and light them up. I always leave my team by saying, be the light out there, because it's hard. So I have some resources for you. I've written the We Can book that Stacey referred to. It's available on Amazon, also on Audibles. There's a workbook now that goes with it, which is a journaling exercise to the side, so you can figure out what is your North Star and how are you going to plan your career to get there. Give your employer grace and give them communication so that you can mutually help each other. Don't just be fast to leave. That's just not a good thing. You want to figure out, can you get this career advancement within? So, and I would say lastly, join wecanrisecommunity.com and we'll keep you posted on everything. But I'm super thankful to have had this chance to speak with everyone. I think, my mission in this world is to create healthier companies that can change the world. And we're at a real pivotal point. So I think we all appreciate that. Coming off this pandemic, we have a chance to do better. And I enlist all of you on that journey.
Excellent. Thank you. We are grateful that you have shared so much of your expertise with us. Super, super valuable discussion. So thank you. Thank you so much. Robin Toft for being our guest today. We will include some links as well in our show notes to your book and the We Can Rise community. Really appreciate your insight and account on this topic for sure. And I look forward to a follow-up discussion at some point. So thank you. I also want to give a shout out to our producer, Ben Kitchen. Most importantly, I'm sending out my thanks to you, our valued listeners. I appreciate your time each week, as well as your help in sharing this podcast. Together, we can continue to spread the word. As always, if you enjoyed today's episode, please remember to subscribe in your podcast player of choice and be sure to share it with your friends, colleagues, and online networks so they can enjoy it too. Plus, send us a quick note or leave an online review. For show notes and additional podcast resources, including links to the We Can book and the We Can Rise community, visit www.ivtnetwork.com/podcast. And we'll be back again next week with another informative and timely discussion. Until then, make it a great week.